My guest today is John Tuckner, the founder of Secure Annex, an innovative platform focused on helping organizations manage and secure browser extensions. With over a decade of experience in cybersecurity and technical program management, they have held key leadership roles at companies like Tynes, Cyderes, and Optiv. At Tynes, they spearheaded multiple initiatives, including the creation of Tynes Labs, the development of a natural language AI workflow tool, and the expansion of the Tynes library of automation workflows. John's career also includes building customer success engineering teams, driving security automation research, and implementing cutting-edge network and security solutions. They bring a wealth of expertise in creating scalable frameworks, strategic tools, and impactful automation technologies. I also consider John a good friend, and I'm excited to be sharing the critical work he's doing with you on the show today. Thanks for being with us on the show today, John. It's an honor to have you.
Oh, thanks, Chris. Always great to talk with
you. Yeah, before we jump into it, do you want to tell us about your new company and what the mission is?
Yeah, so the company's name is Secure Annex, and it's a company that is looking to help protect organizations from malicious browser extensions and to help them manage them more easily. So it's giving people enrichment data about what a browser extension is doing, and then being able to approve, deny, curate lists of extensions that should be installed in their organization and knock down any ones that shouldn't be installed.
And I'm sure throughout the show today, we're going to get a better sense of a new thing that we all have to be terrified about.
Well, I'm here to help at least. So there's that.
That's right. So I'm always interested in the path that folks have taken getting into cybersecurity. And I'm curious how it started for you. Did you grow up in front of a computer, or was it something you found later in life?
I was so attached to a computer growing up, and the internet, from the second that I got it, it is kind of unbelievable that I am a productive adult at this point. But there's just like so many times that I was taking up the dial-up because no calls could get through to the house, and somebody was yelling at me from upstairs to like log off, and they were expecting a really important call, but instead I was just downloading unreal amounts of music on Napster, and I didn't want to like cut off that download too early. So that's where it really like all started for me. Like I was always attached to a computer. Interestingly, I was much more attached to like video production, video editing, and things like that. I was never really a good coder, so I just really didn't think that was my calling at the end of the day. But lo and behold, I like went to college for business, and through that, I ended up getting a job at a local cybersecurity company that would take a chance on me. The small company was called Fishnet Security, and there's only about, 150, 200 people there. But I was just thrown into the fire and said, hey, learn everything that you can about network security and proxies and so many like VPNs. And it's like, get your CCNA in a month and good luck. And somehow that like really worked out for me. It gave me a ton of like useful knowledge and gave me ideas on how networks work and how data moves. Lo and behold, that small local company turned into what Optiv is today, which is just a powerhouse reseller and not necessarily a small local company anymore. So from there, I really made the connections and got the experience that I needed to do more in this industry.
Very cool. And did one of the founders of Fishnet go on to found Cyderes? Is there a connection between those two?
Yeah, basically, Cyderes was a small company underneath the Fish Tech Security umbrella. So Gary Fish, lo and behold, because of the name, founded both of those companies, and was very successful and running the same playbook, and just knew what organizations needed from a security perspective. And it was just such a blessing to have gotten that experience, or to learn how a security company should operate from a very early stage in my career.
Yeah, very cool. And I do think Cyderes eventually got acquired by the Hirscheffect Group, and then it's just this never-ending relationship between companies.
Yeah. From Cyderes being a very small company when I started to then having Robert Hirscheffect's name on it by the time everything was said and done, was kind of surreal for me. So yeah, totally very interesting.
Interesting, for sure. Most of our work today happens within a browser. From your perspective, why is browser security such a critical issue for both organizations and individuals?
Yeah. So, we've kind of moved from these installed thick client apps to, do your financial reporting and log into your database and manage all of your company's most important data, to now using a SaaS app that are created by companies of all different shapes and sizes. I think that's very important because you might have somebody like Snowflake, who is one of the largest companies out there, and you're storing a ton of really important data there. They might still have they have a great security group. It's no telling that they might have some problems here and there, just like any other company does. But then you contrast that with these very small companies, these startups that are VC backed, told to go as fast as they possibly can, and those are the companies that have HR data or these other like very sensitive pieces of data that are maybe much more specific, but also have these like attack surfaces the same way that Snowflake does. And I just think it's so incredible how we treat, like, all of these are now about the same from an attacker's point of view, that they're available on the internet, and the services that they offer can be so dramatic in risk and potential threats. So, but yeah, when you're working in these applications, they use things like MFA and TLS encryption, and that has like heavily reduced the chances of something bad happening when you're utilizing them. So all that's really left now is like the browser that we need to start looking at, because it knows everything that's going on. And maybe a lot of companies have like looked past that and just taken those great new security tools for granted.
Mm-hmm. And you make a great point. I think for a lot of consumers, who aren't doing the research and maybe don't understand, how companies are run and the security protocols held within them, if there's good marketing and a nice shiny website, it looks just as trustworthy, this little fast VC-backed startup, as a, multi-billion-dollar company. And so unless you're doing the research, you can't tell the difference in the way that security is handled within those organizations is going to be vastly different.
Yeah, it's really funny, coming from a security background, that a lot of like the practitioner started companies always have a security person on staff from day one, right? So LimaCharlie and Secure Annex and Tines and a bunch of companies I've been a part of, like day one, they started with security embedded, or at least some sense that, yeah, you should do MFA and all that. But the reality is, for a lot of companies, it can be up till employee 60, employee 70 before they actually hire anybody that's taking security head on seriously. And at that time, like, I think the first couple of years of their existence is just digging out from past poor choices that were made, and incremental gains, because nothing was created at the start with security built in.
Okay, so for those less familiar, can you explain what browser extensions are and the kind of access that they typically have within a browser?
Yeah, so browser extensions are add-ons which give new capability to your browser. So think of it like browsers can't create a new feature for every single use case or website that you go and visit. So extensions can be used to augment a user's experience. But to do so, they generally need like deep access into the pages that you're visiting, your authentication sessions, possibly what you're viewing on screen, to like take a screenshot or find the color of some pixel. So through all of that, like it's really great that we have this, that people can bring on their own like development skills and create an extension to create the feature that they want to see in their browser. But at the same time, when it's offered up, or when these APIs are available to threat actors, they can really create a big problem when used maliciously.
Yeah, so they often request permissions when you're installing them, stuff like access to cookies, tabs, or web requests. So why are these permissions particularly concerning? Is it because of what the threat actors can then do to leverage that information?
Yeah, absolutely. So, if somebody was taking a screenshot every 10 seconds of the web pages that you were visiting, that would probably creep me out pretty badly. Uh, but at the same time, there's a lot of people that don't understand, the inner workings of cookies or what actually goes on in the background with web requests. And so, if you're able to not only just take that screenshot, but then also intercept all of the web requests or set a new proxy to a different destination server so you can see all the form submissions, or if you're able to capture all of the cookies that are being set in your browser and send those off so that somebody can replay those cookies against the service and authenticate as you, impersonate you. That's like really insane to me that that all of that capability exists and can be invisible to a user, and there's just not a lot of great understanding that is possible with browser extensions.
So, can you share some examples of how malicious actors might exploit browser extensions for attacks, like targeting individuals or organizations?
Yeah. So, and just to not like freak anybody out like too badly, a lot of the malicious or unfortunate use of browser extensions can be, little inconspicuous or not really that big of a deal. It's a lot of like affiliate fraud and just trying to gather as much data. Data is king, and sell it off to third parties or to inject your own advertisements and just take a little bit of money off the top so that somebody can make some passive income and not have to do a real job, I guess. But at the same time, like if you're being targeted through a browser extension, the threat actors are becoming, very aware that a lot of the traditional security tools, these browser extensions are basically invisible to them. And so they're finding ways through phishing to, run a PowerShell script. And what was usually like a post-exploitation tool to, install a new program or anything like that, they're sideloading in browser extensions to their target's web browser. And now it's like a little stealthy in that if they know that a target is using a specific service or something that's vulnerable to this, they can start siphoning off those web sessions. They can start stealing data, info about what's going on, and then take that and reuse it outside of the traditional network boundaries so that defenders can't really get a great visibility into what's going on. They're kind of shocked when these sessions or these problems are happening outside of the network boundary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we talk a lot about info stealers on the show. It seems to be something that's dramatically on the rise over the last 12 to 18 months, targeting different operating systems like Mac and stuff that are normally, outside of certain attack vectors, but the browser is on everything, right?
Yep, absolutely. And info stealers is really the name of the game here. And once you have that access to the sessions, you don't necessarily have to use the same security controls like MFA and or firewalls or proxies that you would traditionally rely on.
So what makes it so difficult for organizations or even advanced users to detect malicious browser extensions?
I think it's really just there has never been a great conversation about how to get this data, and browser providers haven't really made it incredibly accessible to general folks either. I like to think of it that browsers are a client or like a user specific tool first for the general population, and then an enterprise tool second, right? And so we've seen it time and time again that most of the best software in the world is created from that lens, but it also lends itself to decisions being made that aren't necessarily the most secure for an organization or for a company's data, but they have to use the same tools that exist with the rest of the world. It's what people know how to use, right? And so, when you have there's not going to be like a consumer that's out there asking for like, how can I do reporting on my browsers? So that it's going to be up to the organizations to be able to demand that capability. And there's very few true like management tools available There's Chrome Enterprise, there's Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, which will give you a list of extensions that you have installed. But beyond that, they don't really go into deep analysis, and they depend on the web stores to curate if the browser extensions are good or not, which is kind of hit or miss. Then there's also a class of tools like CrowdStrike and OS Query, which will get you what browser extensions are installed and pretty much stop there, but at least it's good info to get so you can begin your own analysis.
So how should organizations approach managing browser extensions for their users? Are there effective ways to balance security and usability, like you mentioned?
Yeah, I think you need to come up with, identify at least one tool that you might start with and hope that it has the ability to identify browser extensions in your organization. So something like an OS Query or CrowdStrike or a Chrome Enterprise, I think that might check the box for a lot of organizations. Once you have that, though, you need to get all the extension IDs and then begin understanding what those extensions are actually doing, how they're installed in your organization, if they came from the web store, if your admins have pushed something off to the browsers, or if a developer is testing something. Those are all kind of corner cases that you'd at least want to identify in your organization and take a good inventory of what's existing, so then you can take the next step in coming up with a strategy for do you block everything? Do you allow some things? Do you allow people to request new extensions? And that's a much more advanced and mature state that you kind of can get to.
Mm-hmm. For individual users, do you have advice you would give them to minimize their risk? I know for me, I will just see if something has 1 million stars, I'm pretty sure it's good. that's the standard that I use. Yeah.
Oh, it's so crazy. I really wish I had a better answer for you, because I don't think the web stores make it that easy for users to know, say, what's the top 100 extensions, or what extensions actually came from a reputable publisher, and the display of is this extension featured and how many stars does it have and are all the reviews good, are just incredibly misleading as well. Mm-hmm. Because I don't know how many reviews on extensions that you've left in your life. I would trust you, but I would have to imagine that it's 0, right?
Yeah.
And so you end up with this store that has just gamed extension reviews left by who knows whoever, probably getting paid for it.
Yeah.
And what I've found is just tons and tons of abuse in those systems. And so, I really don't think that the general person needs too many extensions. Maybe a password manager, please, a reputable one, something like a 1Password or a Bitwarden. Hopefully you can tell that it came from a reputable publisher, and something like a ad block or something like that. But beyond that, stay away from the free coupons or free Fortnite coins, or who knows what type of extensions that might get on there. But you also have this setup where it's about 2 clicks to just install anything, and once you install it, I would say a vast majority of people don't even know how to find their extensions that they have installed, and they just kind of get hidden away if they're not pinned and never interacted with again. So if you give your laptop to your kid and maybe they, install the Roblox coins or the Minecraft extension, then you honestly don't know sometimes that these things are even going on, and might have access to the data that you're working with when you go back into work the next day.
And if you're logged into something like Chrome, that will also follow you between computers that you're logged in on. It's not just that one machine. It's ubiquitous across them all.
Yeah, exactly. And it knows what extensions they have installed. So there you go.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go home and do an audit. I have an 11-year-old daughter, so it was very much into Roblox.
Well, look it up in my service, and hopefully I'll give you an AI analysis of the code. What I'm doing is I'm taking the code from the extension, looking over all aspects of it, and using an AI summary to give you an executive summary with, are the permissions aligned with what's actually being used in the service? is there any like malicious code blocks? Maybe it does what it's like intended to do, but it also then sends all of your browsing data off to a third party, right? So you're not suspicious because it's actually giving you free Roblox coins, but it's also, at the cost of all your browsing data and maybe your cookies and who knows what else.
Yikes. So browser vendors have implemented standards like Manifest v3 to improve extension security. Can you, one, tell us what that Manifest v3 is, and do you think these efforts are sufficient, and how, if not, how they fall short?
Yeah, so it's a big migration project right now by Google to move from Manifest v2 to Manifest v3. It's been delayed for about 5 years now. I think it got started in 2019 as a big initiative. But the idea was to, and this is probably like Google and the Internet Consortium's words, to make browsers a lot more secure and a lot more privacy conscious by doing this move that reduces permissions that extension developers have access to. Now, all is well and good. I am a fan of progressive security, but at the same time, a lot of the improvements that are made in this are focused more on the ability for the browser vendors to do what they need to do better. So a lot of people might have heard about this because their uBlock Origin used one of the APIs that Google is deprecating. uBlock Origin used that permission to perform ad blocking, and Google would like to serve more ads. So that's a very short version of the story, but it seems very suspicious. Like that's kind of what's come to a head. And I think there's many other ad blockers that have found their way around this and utilize different permissions to still carry out ad blocking. But, for the most part, that got me a little suspicious on like the actual intent of this. And then there's other aspects of it. One of the major threat scenarios for browser extensions that were closed off was the ability to load in dynamic or third-party scripts to the browser extension. And, to explain this, I think we've figured out that third-party scripts on web servers are, can be compromised if you remember MageCard or other attacks like that. But when you have it on the client side, that's even like more crazy to me that I can publish an extension to the web store and basically put no code in it and only load in custom code every time that somebody executes my browser extension, right? So that really made it seem like there's no review process going on if you're bringing in third-party scripts, and that third-party script could still change any time. There's not like every 2 weeks we're going to review this extension to see if it's still doing the same thing that it does. It's basically like a one-stop review. And so while I think that's like incredible that that's no longer a big threat vector for people using extensions, I think that's almost like the bare minimum of security. Like, don't load custom JavaScript from a third party that a third party controls on your client PC. So yeah, I mean, progress, but I don't think that's going to be the end all be all. And a lot of the attacks that I've been seeing all use Manifest v3 to carry out their mission. So definitely not like eliminated overnight if this migration ever does actually go through fully.
Yeah, and you make a really good point. The incentive for a lot of browser extensions, the developers, are the ability to harvest information that they can sell so that they don't have to get a real job. And Google wants extension developers to keep making extensions. So like their interests are not to limit the amount of data that people can have. Obviously, they want to improve security, but they're trying to walk this line between keeping the extension developers happy and gainfully employed, plus providing quote unquote security for their users.
Yeah, and I think you kind of bring up a really interesting thing is like there's very few people that really set out to create a popular browser extension knowingly. Sometimes, most of the time, if you're just a indie developer, you do it as like a side project, you're just going to create this browser extension to solve a problem that you experience day in, day out. Now, if that becomes really popular and you find that a lot of people have the same problem as you, you're ecstatic, but you're also like, oh, now I've created this beast of something to manage and keep up to date. And I almost have like a responsibility. What I've seen is a lot of people or a lot of companies or just random users will reach out to these developers and they'll say, hey, your extension's really popular. I know you didn't really intend on it becoming, this big. Do you think I could buy your extension from you for $1 every monthly active user? And if I got an extension that had 20,000 daily active or monthly active users, and I did this as a side project and they offered me $20,000, you can be sure that it is off my plate and I'm going on to the next thing and I'm forgetting that this ever happened. And if your extension had permissions that were valuable and it's already approved to the Chrome store, once that transition happens, no notifications ever given to a user that, you're not updating permissions, so you don't have to give a notification to the user. And that threat actor can now push new code that auto updates basically in seconds from the Chrome Web Store and get that deployed out to all of those active users. And now they have a captive user base to, perform their attacks on. And I just think it's incredible that it's really hard to like track that ownership or know when those types of activities happen. But yeah, there's testimonials out there of developers saying this is how exactly it goes down, and they're even under NDAs, so they can't talk about it too much, or else they're going to get their money taken, right? It's insane.
That is. It's always new things to be terrified in this industry. So what do you see as the biggest challenges and opportunities in browser security over the next few years? We talked about this move towards V3. Is there other things happening that are giving you hope? Obviously, you're doing some good work in this area.
Hope. Yeah. I'm trying to give people understanding and visibility into what's going on in a browser extension. Hopefully, give you the thumbs up or thumbs down about what's going on. That said, I think all browsers are going to go through a lot of turmoil because, as not to date this recording or anything, but as we were doing this, it was about a week or two ago that the Department of Justice asked Google to sell off their Chrome business, right? So now we have a bunch of other massive organizations like Microsoft that have built on the foundation of Chromium for their own browsers. I think there's probably at least like 5 of the most popular browsers are built on Chrome. And there's no telling what risks or flux that puts those types of development efforts in if this order actually ends up going through. So for the next couple of months, we won't know one way or another if that's a real threat, if that's something that's going to happen. So uncertainty definitely makes it hard to, put investment efforts into making the web store more secure or build on top of the Chrome Web, like Chrome Enterprise platform, if that's going to be sold off. The other browser companies don't know if they should continue working on Chrome or if Chrome might be sold off to a even bigger competitor than Google. I guess that doesn't really make a lot of sense, but you wouldn't like Apple to acquire Chrome or something like that, right? If you're Microsoft. And I just don't see how, with that going on, we can make a ton of improvements from the browser development standpoint. And so it's going to have to come from outside and actually talking about browser extensions or browsers in general and the type of security that they need to really protect their users.
Okay, if you had one key piece of advice to give the listeners of this show about securing their browsers, what would it be?
I would say that don't install unnecessary extensions. Don't, if there's anything that looks too good to be true, like free coupons, install this extension, will save you so much money. just do a survey or whatever, all of that is probably too good to be true. You don't need them. Be suspicious about what goes on, and also try and limit the number of extensions. Like, just do a quick audit, uninstall anything that you don't recognize or haven't used in a while. And if you are interested in looking up more about what a browser extension is doing or what permissions it requests, I'm creating a service, Secure Annex, to help people understand all of that. So trying to help.
Yeah, we'll put the link for anything you have in the show notes. And is there any place that you can recommend for our audience to go learn more about browser security or even connect with you directly?
Yeah, so John Tuckner on LinkedIn, easy link there. And then as far as browser extension knowledge goes, I'm running a newsletter called Just Browsing that will have all of the like consolidated news over the past couple of weeks. So you can sign up for that. If you sign up for my service or on my website, you'll get that newsletter that has all of the latest on like attacks and research that we've done and findings that we have. So that might be a really great place to go, because there's not a lot out there right now for people to get familiar with and really get a good understanding of what's going on.
Yeah, it is kind of surprising to me that like the browsers, which are most of the way that most people interface with the internet, have so little like in-depth security coverage. So definitely an area to be interested in. The last one I have for you, it's the one I ask of everybody that comes onto the show. It can be as wide or as narrow as you want. Do you have any predictions for the future of cybersecurity?
Yeah, this one's going to be almost too obvious, but AI has been such a boon to cybersecurity and just the whole, all of like humanity, I guess. But the things that you're able to do in creating solutions through AI, if it's like code developers like Cursor or GitHub Copilot, to being able to understand attacks as they come in, give at least some understanding, be able to train up a junior analyst with better context of how they should go about analyzing an attack, because we all know security is just so massive and broad. And I think AI has been such a great tool to reduce that complexity and get people the answers that they actually need in a timely manner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not a replacement for humans, but it definitely augments people and gives them a lot of superpowers.
Yep.
Awesome, John. Thanks for coming onto my show. I actually surprised it took this long for you to be a guest, since we've known each other for so long. But I'm super excited about the work you're doing, and I hope everybody listening will go check it out. Definitely a lot of interesting stuff happening in this space. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Chris.
Take care.